Thank you guys for checking out this InvestorFuse customer case study. We are with Las Vegas' finest, Steve Philostin. I will let him open up an introduction further from himself, but I was really excited to book a case study interview with Steve because he's been a day one InvestorFuse user, and I even remember talking to him when I first started working with InvestorFuse about a year and a half ago, and that's when he was really starting to ramp things up. So, Steve, I'll open it up to you to give a further intro on yourself, and if you want to touch on some things that we want to go into, and then we'll open it up.
Yeah, well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today and hearing my story. And Carlos, thank you so much for you guys giving me some time. Yeah, my name is Steve Philostin. I'm located in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. Back in 1989, my mom decided to relocate the family to Las Vegas. I was not too thrilled about that whatsoever. I was screaming, kicking, just mad. And upon getting to Vegas, we settled in a couple of years, and then fast forward, I ended up leaving Vegas to go to college in Alabama to become a minister. I wanted to go and preach and, work with teens that were in trouble and pretty much, people from broken homes. And while I was in college, I ended up reading the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There was some guy named Robert Kiyosaki talking about real estate investing, and I just kind of like, okay, what's that all about? So long story short, I ended up coming back to Vegas after my mom called me and said, hey, come back home. And so I came back home. I got my first deal under contract for about 10K. I flipped it for 35, made a 25K profit. And then the end user reflipped it right away for 85. And then that guy reflipped it for 130. And every last one of those guys came back to me and said, hey, Steve, can you find any more deals? And I'm kind of like at that point, like, I don't know, I guess. So fast forward, I've been using different platforms such as Zoho. I struggled with that a whole lot. And then I started using InvestorFuse. And I met Carlos and Dan and the guys. And it's been pretty much very good. But the stuff we're going to be talking about today, just to jump into that, is pretty much leveraging bird dogs and JV deals and co-wholesaling with students. And yeah, that's what I'm going to share with you guys from my perspective of what works for me. I have an understanding that every market can be a little different. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about, ladies and gentlemen.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to touch on all those subjects. And Dan Schwartz, the owner of InvestorFuse, of course, he's another rich dad, poor dad guy. I feel like a lot of investors that I run into are rich dad, poor dad guys, or something just clicks after they read that. And of course, in that book, Robert Kiyosaki does, I don't know if he names it a assignment, if he uses that verbiage, but he does like a traditional wholesale deal in that book. So definitely interesting stuff. Tell me a little bit about when you're starting off as far as that first deal that you flipped that you said. Tell me a little about your team structure when you're doing that. Was that just completely you by yourself? And like, how'd you find that lead, if you remember, and how did you sell that deal?
Well, the first deal that I ever did was pretty much I sent out a direct mail campaign. I remember it as clear as day. It was specifically about 750 mailers. And I ended up getting a phone call from a guy that was like literally like 2 blocks away. And keep in mind, I didn't have a car at the time. So instead of driving for dollars, I was like walking for dollars. So he calls me up. He's like, hey, you sent me a card about my property. Do you guys want to buy it? And I'm like, well, what's going on with the property? And this guy, I'm being so serious. He said, listen, if you really want to buy it, come and check it out, and hung up the phone. And at the time, I was reading a book that's called The Magic of Thinking Big and Staying Positive. And so my whole emotions were like just shattered after he hung up the phone. But I said to myself, okay, dude, it's close enough. Just walk to the property. I walked to the property and I looked at it and I'm like, dude, this is my first deal. I just know it. I know it. So at that point, I called him back up and I'm like, hey, let's meet at the property tomorrow. And I'd like to make you a cash offer. And so we ended up meeting up at the property. I ended up getting my next door neighbor to let me use his car, and I made a deal with him. This is a side note, that I would give him half of the deal just to, pull up in transportation, because who's going to buy a property that you don't even have a car?
Right.
So the neighbor lets me use his car, and I pulled up to the property, and I negotiated a purchase price of about $10,000 for that property. And in the back of my mind, I knew at the time, like, I just did a deal, even though the deal wasn't closed yet. My It's like the universe was speaking to me. And so immediately I put up an ad on Craigslist, and I had buyers call me. A buyer made an offer at 35,000, and about a week and 7 days later, we closed and 25K. Yeah.
25K later. Yeah, I'm glad that you touched on that stuff too, the mental aspect of it, because like Sean Terry or other gurus, they say like there's obviously the mechanics of it. You have to be able to negotiate. You have to be able to research comps and see what the value's worth as you're buying it now, what it would resell for. But a lot of it is really the mindset, being able to get yourself to negotiate the deal, stay positive, think big. Um, so that's great that you're able to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah. That a lot of people don't realize that real estate, to me personally, it's a mindset. You have sellers that call you, and sellers are always referring to the verbiage of distress. And what we do is in our industry in Las Vegas market, my team, I specifically hone in on DMF. And DMF for us stands for distress, motivation, and flexibility. If the seller falls under one of those three categories, then I pretty much know that we're going to go out, go to a meeting, and we're going to get that deal under contract. But what I don't allow my team to do is say that, hey, I've got a deal. Well, it's not a deal. You have a lead. You have to verify the information and confirm motivation and then get the deal under contract. That's how it pretty much works on our end.
Awesome. I love that. Speaking of your team, let's transition to that a little bit. So, help take us and the listeners from completing that first deal, transitioning to you having a team and managing all your marketing, your sales team, everything like that, and even coaching them on how to look for those three things in a lead.
Okay, well, oh, team. I have a team is a beautiful thing. And especially when it comes to getting the right people in the right positions, and you all are working together for one common goal and objective. So specifically, when I started putting together a team, I had a huge turnover problem. And what I learned is core values are so key. You want to make sure that the person that you're working with, you guys are on the same page of what you believe in. And last but not least, what's the objective? Like, what are you guys trying to do? So I ended up going out and hiring a VA off of Upworks.com. I put up an ad, and within a matter of like hours, I probably had about 75 applicants. And so I ended up selecting one person, and they became the lead manager for us. And then I brought in an acquisition. But that was probably the one position for me that was hard of letting go the most, because I'm I just love talking to sellers and weeding out motivation. But at that point, I kept those two together myself, and then we brought in a disposition guy to where he would have a conversation with all the buyers. But that didn't work out whatsoever, because it's like, just expecting somebody to know what to do without having a proper script. So I ended up stepping into that role, and I held on to it all the way until today. I still somewhat speak to the buyers, because that's where my passion's at. But I put together a four-man team that I found off of InvestorFuse. So Carlos, I appreciate you and Dan giving us that. I literally just copied and pasted.
I remember that. I remember one of our exact first conversations, like close to a year and a half ago, probably. Um, and tell me, I can't remember exactly what you were using before, Zoho or something like that, before you transitioned into InvestorFuse. Tell me a little bit about, if we just want to talk CRMs for a minute, tell me a little bit about what you're using before and then transitioning into InvestorFuse, like when we first spoke about a year and a half ago.
Well, I was using Zoho before, and Zoho, it's it's a decent CRM. It's just that there were certain things that Zoho would not do. We would try to customize it, make it, and well, pretty much get it down in a unique way to where people that were new on the team that we were onboarding, they could jump right into it and use it. It was not an easy platform to learn how to navigate, and people would come to me on the team, and we would have these long conversations and hours of training. And then one day I just realized, okay, there's got to be something out there better. So at the time, Dan and Carlos and the team at InvestorFuse, they were running a special about this new hottest CRM that was out, and my eyes just lit right up, and I'm like, dude, I've got to get this like right away. And I picked up the phone and I called the team into a meeting as I was, signing up for InvestorFuse, and we pretty much converted ever since, and that's been it.
Awesome, man. Glad to hear that, and it's been awesome seeing you grow and your team develop. I know I've talked to a lot of your teammates that are in your workspace, so it's been awesome seeing you grow and now interviewing you on your success. So let's get into a little bit of what you're doing now as far as marketing. And today's subject we really wanted to touch on was how you're able to use bird dogs and JV deals and the power of that. How that's zero marketing dollars out of pocket, and how you're really leveraging your intellect in real estate and doing both of those.
Got it. Well, what I'm doing right now that's working for me, we used to spend on marketing. We're talking about, oh my goodness, anywhere from like what 3,000, 4, all the way. The most that I've spent on marketing was about 20,000 a month. And as of a couple of months ago, we started really going after a different strategy in terms of doing JV deals with people in our local market, but also, bringing bird dogs in and speaking with them and training them. And so what I would do in the beginning was I would bring in bird dogs to the office, and we would all sit down. I'd get about 10 of them together, and I would specifically select the zip code for each bird dog, and I would tell them to go on Google Maps. And upon going on Google Map, they would select a couple of streets, and we would set up those streets, and we would give them we would call those streets an AO, and that stands for area of operation. And every single street, the bird dog would have to go down every single street and find the boarded up homes, but not just the boarded up homes. If the home was flat out run down or just ugly, or you knew that the property needed some type of CPR, that's what we call it. I would tell them to get the address, and we would skip trace the person immediately. And we would get the property under contract if the seller wanted to sell. If they didn't want to sell, we would just drip on them. But after that area is completed, they would go to the next street and the next street after that. And then we just started getting inventory to where our marketing expense went from an average of that I mentioned, between the 3 to the 20. It went down to the point to where I wasn't paying any marketing out of pocket at all. And we were still getting deals. I'll give you an example of a deal that we recently closed. I had a bird dog bring me a deal.
Also, 1 second, Steve, not to cut in, just to backtrack for 1 second before we get into that deal. Could you go over exactly what a bird dog is for those people listening that may not know what that term is for real estate?
Sure. A bird dog is an individual that goes out and finds property, and you pretty much pay them a flat fee. It's a finder's fee. And, they could be a post office guy, or maybe somebody that mows the lawn, or maybe a pizza delivery driver. And as they're in the neighborhoods, they're just gathering information about vacant properties. And upon sending that information over to you, you'll confirm that it's a solid lead. And if you guys come to a closing in terms, then you'll pay that guy a finder's fee, being the bird dog.
Awesome. Great description. So you can go on and get into that case study for those deals that you got through the bird dogs.
Yeah, so this specific deal, this bird dog brought me a deal. And as I was looking at the deal, and again, I want to call it a lead. He brought me the lead. I looked at it, and I knew right away, off the tip of my tongue, exactly who the buyer would be for it, especially for that area, because again, I specialize in talking to buyers and figuring out exactly what their purchasing model type would be. The seller mentioned that they wanted $325 for the property, actually $350, but we backed the guy down to about $325, and we found a buyer that was roughly at a $410, and our assignment fee was $85,000. So that's the power of working with bird dogs. And for the people out there who are not maximizing that strategy, I would highly, highly recommend you reconsider and start using that strategy like right away. Because again, it was no out-of-pocket expense to me or my team. And the bird dog got paid, the seller got paid, the buyer was happy. And at the end of the day, we were taken care of also too. So bird dogs, you got to get them.
Yeah, win-win, and no, and like you said, like one of the most important things is no money out of pocket for your marketing expenses there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And another deal, Carlos, I'd like to mention to you guys that we're currently working on. We currently have a bird dog that brought us another deal that's by the downtown Las Vegas area, and we were able to get that under contract at a 408, and we have a buyer in place. It's a multifamily property, but the bird dog was able to get that under contract at once again 408, and we found a buyer for that at 525. We're currently through the inspection period right now, so the moral of the story is don't count your eggs before they hatch. Anything could happen, but the point that I'm trying to make on a serious note, yeah, bird dogs are people just like me and you. They might not necessarily have the time to, invest full time, but these are people part time that they're seeing properties. And this gentleman brought me the property. We got the contract and we opened up escrow, and that's where we're at right now. So that's another good one that we're currently working on. And assignment fee on that's roughly about anywhere between 110 to 117. We're looking at pretty much profit on it.
Yeah, absolutely, and the average between the two there, two six-figure deals brought to you by bird dogs. And I remember we spoke before we started recording this a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how you pay different commissions for different scenarios there, and I know that you're pretty giving as far as how high of a commission you pay to your bird dogs, but I think that's something that really keeps them motivated and fired up to be hitting their AO. You know, those streets they're looking for. They're really hitting the road hard for you.
Yeah, my background again is pastoral. That's where my mom used to really put into us the helping people attitude, and so in real estate specifically, when I ended up working with other people in terms of bird dogs, I wanted to give them an incentive to where I was adding value. So I came up with the idea of the 60/40, or even at times 70/30. So depending on where they were at in terms of education, number one, or interest in real estate, number two, that's where we would kind of come up with the structure to where it was a win-win scenario. So I would do 70/30 with some of the bird dogs, and they'd go out and bring the deals to us. Well, I'm sorry, leads to us, and we would qualify them as a deal and move forward. And we'd everybody would win and get paid. And now they're pretty much bringing deals to us constantly. But even then, I would train people on how to recognize an opportunity in comparison to something that's a waste of time. I'll go in detail specifically on what that means. We try to target things in general in terms as we want to do 20 years of ownership, not 15, but 20. And upon 20 years of ownership, we want private sellers, owners, no LLCs, no trust, no corporations. Well, now if it's a trust, well, I call it, there's an exception that can be made if that trust is in certain areas of the city, wherever you're based out of. Like if it's a top four hot zip code and it's a trust, then we'll go after that. If it's not, then we'll actually remove that out of our search, and we'll go to the other properties that fit that criteria. But these bird dogs, upon them coming to the trainings with me, I sit them down like literally. We'll go to like a Starbucks or a coffee and beans, and we just bring a pen and notepad and we strategize in different AOs, and I'll make a deal with them and say, hey, you've got to go out and get about 5 to 10 properties today that fits the property profile that we're looking for. And if you don't get that 5 or 10, then don't come back to the office. And it's a little harsh, but sometimes people have to be motivated and called out. That's what we do.
Absolutely, you're like a next level bird dog coach or bird dog employer, because I know some people that when they have a bird dog, they might not even see them face to face. They're just feeding them leads or prospects, but you're actually coaching them, teaching them how to pull comps, and actually delivering you like qualified leads or prospects that you can go in and try to make a deal out of that. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely. 80/20. 80/20 is key.
Yep.
I don't want 100 unqualified leads now. So, yeah, definitely agree.
Absolutely, man. Well, that's great stuff, and going to be very, very helpful for those people that are looking to get more leads with less marketing budget. So tell me a little bit about moving forward. Do you see yourself marketing-wise continuing to lean on this bird dog strategy, coaching them up, getting them leads? And do you see yourself continuing to wholesale? Are you getting into any other transactions like acquiring rentals or land, anything like that, moving forward?
Well, moving forward, pretty much I've been in all phases of real estate from A through Z. Um, as of right now, I'm really venturing off into the commercial real estate sector, and that's something that's been definitely heavily on my heart. I feel that there's a lot of opportunities there. We're actually working on a commercial opportunity right now on the development side. So most of my time right now is spent on the commercial real estate side, and you know, raising a lot of private capital and coming up, finding value add opportunities to where some of the institutional investors can kind of come in and pick those up, and I work alongside with them and also learn the process. That's the best way of getting the education of working with these people. Now, coaching, I don't mind doing coaching. What I've learned about coaching, me personally, is coaching. It's you've got to find a person with the right mindset. I found people who really, really want to become a coaching client, and they necessarily haven't read anything about real estate in general. They just heard about it on some infomercial. And what I'll do is I always tell people to go and get Sean Terry's 19 Weeks to Quitting Your Job and read that. And if you get through that book, then give me a call.
To qualify them a little bit, that's great.
Oh yeah. So, but also even InvestorFuse, you guys, I'm always on the site. Like I'm constantly reading up different articles that you guys are writing up and putting out. And so, yeah, I'm in commercial right now, commercial real estate, and I'm still going to continue to do flips. That's home base. You got to keep that going, and raise my 2-year-old daughter. But that's where I'm at. Very simple guy, and I'm into motivational speaking at my detention centers too. That's what I do on my spare time.
Love that, man. Great stuff. Well, I appreciate your time and sharing everything. What's the best place for people to reach you? I mean, I don't know if you're coaching anybody or talking to anybody outside the Las Vegas market. I see you're always helping people close deals there on Facebook and everything like that. But if people wanted to reach out to you to talk about bird dog, either compensation or how to get bird dogs, what's the best place they can reach you at?
The best place to reach me, I would tell people to reach me at Steve at PhilistinLLC.com. And I'll spell that out to you guys. That's my first name is Steve at PHILISTINELLC.com. Or you guys can just request me as a friend on Facebook. And anything that I could do to help you guys or add value, or even if it's a quick, 5 minute powwow about brainstorming about a strategy in real estate that you guys might have, I'd love to do it. Real estate, it's a life changer. And I tell people all the time, if you put in 100% effort, you're going to get what you put into it. And that's 100%, returns. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that. I'll definitely put your information into the YouTube description too, so people have that readily available when they're watching the video.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve, thank you, my man. Have a blessed day. It was awesome talking to you, and hopefully chat soon.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I appreciate it, Carlos. You guys take care. And if you guys don't have InvestorFuse, ladies and gentlemen, you better get it. I have a saying. Carlos, I'm going to say it. You probably don't have it. I'm always saying to Dan and Carlos that if I hear of anybody who doesn't have InvestorFuse, I don't even look at you as an investor. You're a joke. You've got to get it. I'm telling you right now. Get it. It'll change your life. Use it. Take note. And once again, get InvestorFuse.
I love that, man. Appreciate that. I've heard that quite a few times over the last year and a half. But talk to you soon, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.